I was thinking, I used to play basketball in this room, and before basketball games, I would always nearly throw up. And today it happened as well, so that's awesome. It was April 19th, 2020. I was in my office in downtown Minneapolis. I was sitting on the floor, and I was crying. A few months before, my sister had died of cancer. A month later, a global pandemic had been unleashed. And in the weeks that followed, a man named George Floyd was killed in the place I now call home. As I sat on my floor, overcome by grief, people were outside boarding up our windows because there was a trial and the verdict was about to come in, and nobody in the city knew if our city was still going to stand. As I sat there alone on the floor, covered in tears, using mini Kleenex, I received probably the most impactful phone call of my life from one of my mentors and friends. Her name is Lisa Chin. Lisa's in her 60s. She's a former executive of a nonprofit that has had global impact. She grew up in the Philippines. You could say that Lisa and I literally grew up with nothing in common, which makes her the perfect type of person to speak into my life. That morning, as I sat there on the floor, Lisa gave me the gift of her presence. In fact, at one point, we just sat in silence over FaceTime or Zoom, and she just said, "Nick, I don't even have words to say, but I'm just honored to sit here with you in your grief." It was a life-changing conversation for me. My topic today is to encourage you to make space to listen to this generation that's coming. Listen. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but there's a generation that's rising up. They're entrepreneurial, they're creative, they're on their phones all the time. They may not dress like you, look like you, act like you, vote like you, or love like you. But this generation is coming and they will change the world. I believe that the problems we're up against, the issues we're discussing, the adversity that we see in our day, I believe the answers to the problems that we are dealing with, they've already been born. And they're waiting to be unleashed. A generation waiting and looking for someone who will believe in them, someone who will see them, someone who will call them by name and say, "You matter. We believe in you, and we're cheering you on." You see, that's my story. I'm just a kid from North Dakota who played basketball, got a business degree, but all of a sudden I felt a stirring in my heart that there's a need in our culture that needs to be met. Young people facing depression, anxiety, suicide, self-harm. For me, there's two things that motivate me in my work. One is that the leaders that have gone before me that made space for me and listened. And two is my relationship and encounter with the person of Jesus. Now, I can't be real on this stage and not say that Jesus has changed my life. Whatever you think about faith and organized religion, there's a person in history that showed us how to listen. I'll tell people all the time, Jesus is the only one who welcomes everyone. Rich and poor, sinner and saint. His arms are open wide, and as we think about pushing to the edge, I think this story, whether you believe it's true or supernatural or just historic or fiction, it gives us a model of somebody leaving comfort to enter discomfort, to take on pain that was not their own, to bring apart a better solution. You see, there's three things I want to encourage you with as you're thinking about the next generation. Number one, I want to encourage you to make time to listen to their story. Every person has a story, and those stories will change the world. I was in my 20s. I was living in Fargo. I was trying to get this girl to marry me. She wasn't biting. I was overwhelmed trying to start an organization. People thought I was nuts. I was. And this man came into my life. His name was Mike. Mike made space for me. Mike sat down with me. Mike would sit down with me. He would call me. He would say, Nick, how are you? I believe in you. Tell me, Nick, what's in your heart? You see, something changes when we make space for others. I make it a point every day. I say, man, I want to see people. I want to make space for people. I actually believe that if I only talk about hope and faith from the stage, then I'm an actor. So I want to live out off stage far more than what I do on it. And so my favorite part of every day is people I meet. Yesterday, a young man named Caleb, here from New Jersey, for the wrestling tournament. He's dreaming of changing his generation. Did you know that this generation is the most diverse and cause-driven generation in American history? They're looking for something to live for, something to lay down their lives for. They've seen broken homes, broken economy, broken promises. They want something real and authentic. Listen to their story. Number two, listen to their dream. You know, when I go to restaurants, I love to just look at the servers and say, man, how can I help you? What do you need? They're shocked. I used to work at Famous Dave's in Fargo. I was Famous Nick, welcome to Famous Dave's. Can I get you a famous margarita or some rib tips? You know, the amount of people that would actually care about me was so small. You know, a couple weeks ago, I was at this restaurant, and I turned to the young lady who was serving us. I was in Arizona, and I said, hey, what's your name? She said, Alyssa. I said, Alyssa, how are you today? She says, oh, I'm so busy. I said, no, Alyssa, how are you? She all of a sudden started to break down in tears at our table. Parents are fighting. Dad might go to jail. Doesn't know how she's going to pay the bills. You know, I'm with this group of people, and in a second, we turned from needy consumers to people who had entered into the story of a young person that matters. The rest of the meal, we spent trying to lift her up, trying to care about her, trying to let her know, Alyssa, you're awesome. What's your story? What's your dream? We believe in you. Now, I'll tell you the third thing I want to challenge you with. First, listen to their story. Number two, listen to their dream. Number three, invest in their future. You see, listening will cost you. You can't listen to someone's story and then give them a cheap tip. If I truly care about you, I will sow into what it is that's in your heart. This not only will give you an edge, but it will make you a better human. You know, last fall, I got a text message from some students at the University of Oklahoma. They said, Nick, we have a dream, and we've went to 20 leaders, and they all say we're nuts. I said, bring it on. You probably are nuts, but I can't wait to hear it. They said, we think we're supposed to fill the football stadium for a student-led event. They said, it's never happened in the history of our university. I said, man, I did the same thing when I was a student. We tried to do something at NDSU. They said it's never going to happen, and we were dumb enough to keep trying. These students said, Nick, would you come alongside us? And I'm telling you, this April 29th, Chance the Rapper came to Norman, Oklahoma, and we filled the football stadium for the first time in the history of this university to point to hope, to point to faith, and to say no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, you matter, because these young men and women had a dream. After the event, I got a note, a handwritten note. Can you believe that? I didn't even know Gen Z knew how to write a handwritten note. You know what it said? Nick, thanks for listening. Thanks for believing in us. Now it's your turn.